G'day guys and welcome back to another video. Now in a previous video I talked about how we could use the Hornet to deal with the Doombringer drop because that makes a lot of sense. You can deal with Doombringers with another air unit and shut it down. But there's another playstyle and Top showed this really effectively and I've been trying it out as well. It is really powerful and it involves the use of a lot of Lancers, probably my favorite Vanguard unit. So I'm going to show you and talk about a lot of the variations to this build, but how you can execute this and crush any infernal player who is opening double conclave. Without further ado, let us just jump right on in. So in this video, what I want to talk about is a style that I think is going to become very popular. And I had started thinking about this style for a few days now, but I've sort of got some confirmation on it now that I've seen Skillus do it quite effectively versus a laser. And I've also seen Kiwian or Top do it very effectively against parting. And the reason why I didn't think this build order really worked previously was because of the Doombringer drop. I think it worked against everything else very effectively. So we'll talk about that as we go, but it's going to be a command post first. So just rally onto your Luminite. The map is Secluded Grove, so I'm sending my dog around all the bases just to see if I can find any of the flowers. The way I scout is I scout this node first, and then I use my dog vision to scout here and then over the wall, and then I run up to scout the top side. Hopefully you found the flowers then. If not, they're obviously going to be in these speed camp locations. If you find any flower, so there was a flower here that I just found. I knew it was here because it was here. It's mirrored across the map. So at 4 workers at around 350 Luminite, I'm going to send that to the natural. Power build this as best as I can. And what do I see as I go across the map and scout? I see a double production building opening. This doesn't really matter for deciding whether or not I want to do the build order. I'm going to do it regardless. But this build order does extremely well against double conclave. So if you saw a brute expand, an iron vault, maybe an iron vault and a conclave, the build order is not as good, but it's still, I think, very good. The reason is we're going to be building a lot of upgraded lancers, and without a vault, gaunts do not deal very well with upgraded lancers. So that's going to be the general thought process behind it. Now, I think in this game, let's just go and check when I finish my command post. Because I've seen 2 buildings, I'm thinking about cutting this worker here and building this barracks. And, you power build it. One thing I will say is it's not extremely important to go down at the earliest timing possible with workers so that when you reach the natural, you have 400. That is not as important as having money after the command post is finished with 4 workers to build a racks. So you could even arrive at the natural with like 450 minerals. That is totally fine, because it means you'll be able to afford the racks before the overcharge times out. So just keep that in mind. We don't need perfect execution. In fact, less than perfect execution might be what is perfect. Just some food for thought. So we're going to be building a Lancer, and then in the main base, we are going to do either 2 things. So in this game, what I did, I was experimenting a bit. I send 4 workers to the Therium very quickly. Just take off 4 workers, and these guys are going to mine 100 Therium. That's all. The other way to do this, and I think either way realistically works, is you can just keep 8 workers on Luminite and then just rally one by one to Therium. Your Lancer upgrade timing is going to be slightly delayed if you do 1 by 1, but I don't think it's that big of a deal. Obviously, you have more Luminite, so you can get barracks down quicker. So there's a lot of trade-offs. So that's already the first variation of the build order that you can do. I think both are very strong. But we're going to go up to 4 workers on Therium. And then we're thinking about when our next overcharge is coming. Our next overcharge is going to allow us to build all of the buildings that we want really quickly. So I overcharge. I'm going to build a bunker. I'm going to be building a biokinetics lab. And then if you wanted to, you could build a second barracks right now. That is the other variation. In this game, I'm actually going to go for 3 barracks very quickly. Obviously, 3 barracks is 300 Luminite, so I don't have the money for it right now. Instead, I'm just going for continuous Lancer production with a very fast upgrade. But, this build order is so fluid and dynamic, you can do it any way that you like. You could cut Lancer production, get down earlier racks. You could continuously produce Lancer production and just go 2 racks. That's also very fine. There's even a style, and I'll talk about this very briefly, this is how Kiwian does it, is instead of power building the first racks, right? What he does is on his second overcharge, so you want to overcharge as quickly as possible in this variant. On his second overcharge, he builds his first 2 barracks at once. So he skips this first barracks and then builds 2 immediately later. With that, he can get out very quick double Lancer production. So that's another variation. All I am trying to say is that when you get to your second overcharge, you should have some people mining Therium, ideally up to 100, and then sending them back, like I've done in this game. And then you build biokinetic slab and any number of barracks that you want. It is 100% up to you. If you want to stick with the one and then do two barracks later, that's totally fine as well. I could have cut this, turret if my opponent was being very, very passive to get down to earlier barracks. But was my opponent being passive in this game? Let's have a quick look. He went double production building before expand. I'm pretty worried, especially because I can see across the map that, on the mini-map, that he's taking the speed camp, this resource camp now, and speed camp. He's taking it all. So I know he has a huge army. I'm definitely getting a bunker versus this. But from here, we just start building lances one by one. And the idea is going to be that at some point we're going to get maybe 6 to 8 lances, and we're just going to go and attack. If there is a Doombringer in our base, we are going to still attack with 6 to 8 lances and the Lancer upgrade. It's totally fine. For the very, very first drop, if we only have 4 lances out, you might need to chase it around a bit. That's totally fine. Keep some in the natural, keep some in the main base. You'll be able to deal with the Doombringer drop that way. But then as soon as we get 6 to 8 lances, we just go book it across the map and rally the rest of our lancers back into our base to defend the drop. So that's going to be the general game plan. Now my opponent is insane and he's going for this speed camp here. My opponent is like a top 20 infernal player on the ladder and did very, very well in the EGC tournament. So he's not shabby by any means. And I sort of catch him with these 3 lancers. The Fiends do some things, try and body block, try and kite it away as best as you can. My lancers take a lot of damage, but I end up killing all of these units. And this is the scary thing about lancers. Gaunts, if they're caught unawares, deal with them. They just eat them up like cereal for breakfast. So now that we've dealt with this, my lancers are sort of a bit weak. So I'm like, well, let's go kill this health camp. This deer. Because the health camp is now very, very strong. And, I'll be able to heal back up to full. But I'm just producing 3 racks Lancer. That's all I want to be doing. Building Lancer, Lancer, Lancer. I know my opponent opened Mass Gaunt. Lancers are the best unit. Like, they are the hardest counter to Gaunts possible. The biggest reason why is, one, they do some AoE damage. So they have a range of 2, and anything within here would be getting AoE. So if you get really close to Gaunts, you can hit multiple of them at once. They take very, very little damage from the bounce because of the Lancer passive. And also because of the Lancer passive, they do not take any damage versus Infest. So I think Infest is 1% damage of your max HP for 10 seconds, every second. Lancers do not take any damage. They don't take that damage at all. So it's very, very powerful. Now my game plan here, if my opponent was coming across the map, if he was Doombringer dropping me at all, if he has all these Gaunts in a base, in a Doombringer in my base, that's fine. I just go and attack him. I mean, in this game he's playing very defensive out of Shroud Stones, but these Shroud Stones do not kill Lancers. Lancers deal bonus damage to structures, if you guys didn't know this, and they don't take any damage. You can kill them. Do not be afraid. Send your Lancers in, have a good time. Just transitions behind this, keep building workers, never stop building workers. Once you're fully saturated 12 out of 12, you don't get any additional benefit. So then I start rallying to this base, this Therium. And then when I have 400 minerals, I'll grab all of the workers here, overcharge them, and build a 3rd base. That's the game plan. So let's go back very quickly. I'm now thinking about, I check a 4th base with this group of 4 Lancers. I push into the 3rd base with this Lancer group. So he has some Shroud Stones, so I'm going to... let's check the other angle. Oh, he also has them here. Huh, that's strange. Can I break this? I'm thinking to myself at this point. I'm not so sure. Well, let's go see what happens anyway. I'm continuing to build Lancers through this. The Gaunt bounce, let's really slow this down. The Gaunt bounce hits all of these Lancers and activates the passive really, really quickly. So they get up to max stats on the Lancers. They're dealing so much damage, not taking any damage, and they just destroy all these Gaunts. And if you get out with these Lancers on low HP, which I do, I can just send them to this HP camp and they'll heal very, very quickly. I'm a bit indecisive in this game. I was going to send them here, and then I realized, you know what? I should just take my opponent's HP camp, because obviously this gives you 75 Therium. So it's very, very impactful. Now behind this, am I doing anything at home? I have gone up to my second tier 2 command post. And this is extremely easy to do, right? Because I'm building lances and I have all this excess therium. So you can afford the 100 therium to get this very, very easily. And then with that, I'm going into a bunker onto the 3rd base. Just some general good stuff, making sure you're not getting supply blocked. Keep building workers no matter what. Because if the pressure is going well, you just take a 4th base if you build more workers than saturate. Just take a 4th. That's how this game plan really works. Now my opponent is adding shroud stones and weavers, and he's trying his best. Now what's the transition behind this? Well, I start adding medtechs. Medtechs make the most sense to transition into. Get the nano swarm upgrade, get the system shock upgrade for the medtechs, because that, first of all, the spells are really, really useful. But also, just as a note, I sent one lancer in before the rest of my army, and I shielded it. Just something cute that you can do. But yeah, medtechs make so much sense, right? Because they heal, they add more armor with their heal to the lancers so that they're super duper tanky. Try and jump on top of the gaunts. You can see here I grabbed a bunch, sent them down here, grabbed another bunch, sent them here. It's just a really, really effective way of dealing with gaunts. We kill all the shroud stones. I see my army's getting a bit weak now. That's fine. The lancer's passive means I can get out nice and effectively. Medtech's coming across the map, so I'll heal up even quicker. And my transition, well, I'm going to be taking a 4th base. I could even take a 5th base. Ideally, though, you go up to like 6 racks and you start building exos. And make sure you get the exo upgrade. But my opponent is trying to survive the best that he can without any vaults, which is something I would not recommend. Now, if your opponent was building, let's say, magmadons and brutes, it becomes a bit harder. And my general tip for dealing with brutes is do not fight brutes. You're faster than brutes. You can kite them. Do not sit there and just let the brute hammer you with its big axe, because it deals so much damage, okay? That's what I would recommend. Now I go in, I snipe all of the gaunts. He taps out because he's lost his entire army. I could just retreat at this point, heal up again. You know, there's so much variation. Going into exos is 100% the next move, because exos join this army and synergize so well with all the medtech energy that you've built up already. So that's the variation, and I think this is going to be an extremely popular style that we see on the ladder over the next week, mainly because parting has made the double conclave build extremely popular, and gaunts struggle very hard against lancers. So the main takeaway with this build order is command post first, and then on your second overcharge, power build all of the infrastructure that you need. That would be the big takeaway for you to execute this build well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Perhaps you're interested in some more Vanguard build orders. Well, I have another video that went over, from an older patch, but they're still quite relevant, some beginner Vanguard build orders to get you started.